Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about human rights and government policy. Okay, so we have Carol James and Selena Robinson, and they're to talk about an ongoing problem in British Columbia with Strata insurances. So if you have a condo or something that involves a strata or some sort of a co-op living in a building, you probably noticed that your insurance policies the premiums have gone up significantly, and it's becoming a problem. There's actually been some buildings that haven't even been able to buy insurance, and Minister James and Minister Robinson are here today to address that and talk about what the government is going to do to help the situation out. So let's listen in.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I want to first recognize that we're on the traditional territory of the Songhees and Esquimalt people and thank them for the ability to meet on their land. For most British Columbians, as we all know, the last few months have been a time of profound change. COVID-19 has disrupted all the routines, everything from heading in the office at the start of the day to being able to visit our loved ones. The pandemic has changed the way we do business, with many restaurants and shops only now opening up. And the pandemic, as everyone knows, also delayed the spring session by closing the legislature. While COVID-19 put many aspects of our daily life on pause, it didn't take away some of the existing challenges that are being faced in our province, including those being faced by strata owners. Throughout BC, too many people have seen the cost of strata insurance skyrocket. In late 2019, we began to hear examples of significant shifts in the strata insurance market that went well beyond any kind of normal market corrections. In response, I directed the Financial Services Authority to examine the issue in depth. Last week, the BCFSA provided their interim report to government. The report showed that premiums have risen by approximately 40% across the province. It also confirmed that this is an incredibly complex situation with provincial and global factors contributing to the costs, and that includes everything from rising property values to earthquake risk. While the report confirms the reasons behind the increased prices are complicated, it's in fact very clear that the results are not. The current situation is unacceptable, and there is no quick fix for this problem. But as the Financial Services Authority says in their interim report, we all have a role to play in returning the strata market, the insurance market, back to balance. And that's what our government is intending to do. Today, we tabled legislation to amend the Strata Property Act and the Financial Institutions Act. This legislation will bring more transparency to the strata insurance market and help strata councils and owners cope with the current situation. Minister Robinson is going to provide more details on the legislation, but briefly just touching on the finance pieces, one of the steps we are taking is to prohibit referral fees. This means that insurers and insurance brokers will no longer be able to offer referral fees as an incentive to a strata property manager. The benefits are twofold. First, this will give strata councils more confidence that the choice of their insurer or their broker has not been swayed by referral fees. And second, the referral fee comes out of the commission that an insurance broker makes. And so with referral fees ending, we certainly strongly encourage brokers to pass those cost savings on to strata corporations. As I've said, this is a complex problem without a simple solution. but today's legislation is a step forward in tackling this problem. It also paves the way for us to bring in additional regulatory measures. Measures, again, that are going to improve financial transparency by requiring brokers to disclose their commissions on a strata property. We're also strengthening notification requirements about changes to insurance costs and insurance coverage or an intent by a company not to renew. This again is going to help strata corporations get the notice they deserve and need to plan ahead. Additionally, the BC Financial Services Authority is going to continue their work over the summer with a further report expected in the fall. And with that, I'll turn it over to Minister Robinson to provide details on the other piece of the legislation.
Thank you, Carol, and good afternoon, everyone. I would also like to acknowledge that I'm speaking with all of you from the traditional territory of Lekwungen-speaking peoples in the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. We do absolutely understand the difficulty that people living in stratas are facing when dealing with significant increases in insurance costs, or in some cases, not being able to find insurance at all. And we know that this is placing people in difficult circumstances and risking their ability to keep their home or to maintain it. This is an issue that has been growing for a number of months, and it's one that is being felt in communities across the province and, in fact, around the world. As mentioned by both Minister James and the BC Financial Services Authority last week, this is an extremely complex issue with a number of national and global factors affecting cost and availability of insurance. This is a problem that has been identified by many organizations, including groups from the insurance industry, the strata owners associations, the official opposition, and many strata owners who have been reaching out to us on their own. As the FSA pointed out last week, there is a role for everyone involved to getting to a solution, and that includes government. While there is no quick fix to this problem, this legislation is a first step in government doing its part to tackle a challenging problem facing many British Columbians. The amendments we have tabled today to the Strata Property Act and Financial Institutions Act will not only help bring more transparency to the strata insurance market, but they will give strata councils and owners additional tools to cope with the challenges that they are facing today. This legislation will also provide a roadmap for future measures that will help manage these significant increases and undo some of the damage caused by some decisions made by previous governments. In addition to action on items like referral fees and broker commissions, as described by my colleague, these amendments to the Strata Property Act will give clear guidelines for what strata corporations are required to do in a number of other situations. For example, they will require strata corporations to inform people about any changes to insurance coverage in advance, such as increases in deductibles, so owners can make informed decisions about their own coverage and financial planning. Today, owners may only find out about these decisions that are made by strata managers or councils and have little notice for these increased fees. The amendments also make it clear that stratas are authorized to use their contingency reserve fund to pay for any unexpected, unbudgeted, and imminent premium increase, to limit the need to rely on assessments or risk gaps in insurance coverage. And these changes will protect strata unit owners against large lawsuits from strata corporations if the owner was legally responsible for a loss or damage, but through no fault of their own. As Carol said earlier, we know there isn't a simple solution to solving the challenges facing BC's strata insurance market, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't take the steps that we can, and that's what we're doing today. Beyond the legislation itself, a number of regulatory changes will be made to further address this situation in consultation with the sectors. One example of the things we will be working toward through regulatory changes will be strengthening depreciation reporting to help stratas better plan for future maintenance and set aside funds for contingency planning. Unfortunately, when depreciation reports were put in place by the previous government, they chose to leave a loophole that allowed strata corporations to avoid doing these depreciation reports. This created risk for owners and increased the risk of claims from unaddressed repair needs, which drives up the costs of insurance. Unfortunately, many strata owners today are paying the price for this mistake. There is more work that will happen over the coming months. And with continued input from key stakeholders, we know and we know that the FSA will continue their work as well, identifying the changes that are needed for all the different groups out there. Because we know it will take all of us working together to help lower strata insurance costs for people. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Tony Gioventu, the Executive Director of the Condominium Homeowners Association of BC. Unfortunately, Tony is only available by phone as he is isolating, but I'm pleased to have him here with us virtually today. Through his work, Tony is well aware of the challenges the rising cost of strata insurance is creating for people, and he has been a key voice in raising this issue with government and identifying the need for some of the actions that we are taking today. Tony?
And the transformation that will be enabled by the legislation that will look at other conditions such as unit descriptions of buildings where there are standards that are set for more predictability for the insurers without the high costs of high-end finishings or the cost of finishings in units, the ability to look at better long-term planning and funding for resources. All of these initiatives are certainly going to make a difference as we progress. As the Minister has said, there is no quick fix. It is a free market industry. Everyone acknowledges that. But we do have conditions within our legislation and within our industries that are regulated in the province that can be changed and will certainly help to influence the outcomes. And thank you again to government for taking such a strong level of interest and support. And certainly we will see, I would suspect, a high level of public consultation with all of the partners in the industry as we move forward. Once again, thank you very much, Minister James and Minister Robinson, for your support.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to questions now. And just as a note, please, to everybody on the phone, please press star 1 to enter the queue. I would also ask that you please unmute your phones. Today and going forward, we are taking one question and one follow-up. If you would like to speak with Tony, unfortunately, due to the delay, he has had to leave, so you can contact the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for that information. Our first question today is from Richard Zussman, Global News.
Either Minister James or Minister Robinson, I'm trying to understand how much these referral fees actually add to the bottom line. Like how much were these referral fees and how much will this save? And I know every building will be different, but we're looking at a 40% average increase. How much of that 40% may getting rid of referral fees cover?
Well, I think the first piece is transparency, and Tony mentioned this as well, the ability to actually disclose, number one, end referral fees, but two, disclose the commissions, will in fact create some competition in itself through transparency. So I think that's the first piece that's critical to note. We have heard that commissions could have been it's been reported, up to 20% of the cost. That's a very large amount that is going into commission fees. So by disclosing that, again, we believe that that'll help create some competition and help address some of the challenges. And we certainly, as I mentioned, would encourage the brokers to pass those savings on when it comes to condo insurance.
Richard, do you have a follow-up? Okay, moving on. Vaughn Palmer.
Ministers, thanks for doing this. The Financial Services Authority warned about a couple of other problems they'd found in the market. One was that there were buildings that couldn't get coverage at all. The insurers wouldn't touch them. And the other, the prospect that because British Columbia has been branded a high-risk market by the reinsurers, some insurance companies thinking of leaving the BC market. Have you got any thoughts about that? Is there anything the province can do about stratas that can't get themselves insured on any basis?
So thanks for the question, Vaughn. So one of the things we are doing is taking a look at how to make that available so they don't have to do full replacement costs. So that's one of the changes that we're looking at so that they can get at least some partial insurance. But the other thing that we're dealing with here is a lack of competition because of these risk factors. So the steps that we're taking today is to reduce some of those risks, to put things in place so that there isn't as much risk, and that will open up the market, invite more insurance product into the market, and bring it back to balance. And that's the intent here.
Do you have a follow-up, Vaughn?
Yeah, the other thing, I've been looking around. I may have missed some of this, but I've been looking around for evidence that this is happening in jurisdictions to the south, particularly down the west coast, where there's earthquake risks there as well. And it doesn't seem as if their market for insurance is having the same experience. Now, I realize we have a very large number of strata properties, and that may be one reason, but have you seen any indication how the Americans seem to have escaped this problem to some degree?
I believe that the BC Financial Services Authority is going to be certainly that's part of their what they're looking at. They have in their interim report indicated that it is not just unique to British Columbia, that they are seeing it elsewhere, and so their final report will help us understand sort of where it is globally. But again, we have a very significant strata market. We have also our land values are very high, so it's very expensive, and the challenge really here is that we don't have the kind of competition that is needed in the private industry. So we're focusing on reducing the risks that we have and opening it up so that we can have a better competition and better prices as a result of that competition.
Next question is from Lisa Cordasco, CHLY.
Thank you. Good morning. Can you give some examples of how you are reducing the risk?
So one of the examples I'll give you is the depreciation report. So right now, the way it stands is that that strata, a three-quarter strata vote to not to do a depreciation report. And that creates a challenge. When you don't do a depreciation report, you don't know what the risks are, and so then the risks go up. But if we make regulatory changes that would allow us to make some different requirements, change that, we're going to consult with the condominium owners. We're going to make sure that we have a little bit more robust dialogue about what would be appropriate. This will help reduce the risk. When you know exactly the shape that a building is in, when you understand what lies ahead in terms of what needs to be invested to maintain a building, then you're going to be able to get insurance at a lower rate. And so that's an example of what we mean by lowering the risk.
Do you have a follow-up, Lisa?
Yes, I do. That's a great example, but you're waiting to actually close that loophole. How come?
Well, this is the work to close that loophole. It's a regulation, and so we're going to give ourselves the authority to be able to do that. And that's the work that we're going to take over the summer to bring it in by our regulatory means.
Next question is from Lisa Houston, News 1130.
George, taking my speaker off. These changes now, how much will they affect what owners are paying? You mentioned the 20% commission, but will this be a change, sort of referencing what Lisa was just asking? Is this a change that people are going to see a change in the insurance bill now, or 6 months down the road, or a year down the road? How soon are people going to be able to save some money?
Well, I want to go back again to the challenges and the complexity of this issue. Again, the BC Financial Services Authority has made it clear. People recognize that there isn't a quick fix. This isn't a quick fix for the pressures that people are facing. So it is going to take some time to address the challenges in the market. As Minister Robinson has said, part of that is looking at risk profile, defining what is defined as a unit so that can be clear for the insurance so they get the right insurance for the strata as well as the individual owners. But these are not quick fixes, unfortunately. Just to come back to the issue of uniqueness here in British Columbia, and Minister Robinson mentioned this, the challenges of having a lack of competition, very few providers of strata insurance here in our province. That makes a big difference compared to the south of the border where there are larger companies, more ability to be able to get insurance. You add into that the risks of earthquake, further weather challenges, that creates some very unique challenges in the market. So these are the first step that we're taking: transparency, making sure people disclose, notice for stratas when they are seeing increases, and then the next piece, again, we'll see a report coming in the fall from the BC Financial Services Authority that will talk about the structure of the insurance industry in BC and are there further changes that can occur.
Do you have a follow-up, Lisa?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. With the talking about prohibiting the commission, is that a quick fix? Is that something that can come in sooner? Or is any of this like 6 months or a year down the road for people who are paying these increased fees? I'm just looking for a more tangible number on when any kind of change is going to happen to what people are seeing on their bills.
You will see an end to the referral fees once the legislation's passed, if the legislation passes. So that's a step that's going to happen immediately. The disclosure pieces, again, will be bringing in regulation, but those will happen quickly because, again, we think that will provide some of the competition that's needed when people actually know what the commission fees are like, and they'll be able to look around for providers as well. So those will be fast pieces that'll be moving. That's why we wanted to bring in the legislation as soon as the legislature started to sit again.
Next question is from Tanya Pletcher, CBC. Tanya?
Yes, hello?
Go ahead.
Hi, Minister James. I'm wondering if your government is considering any other measures, taking a wider look now at the market, to moderate the housing market, considering that condo prices in particular have risen 5% in the last year still in Greater Vancouver.
Well, it's certainly part of the reason that we're continuing on with our affordability measures when it comes to housing. Two-part, dealing with both demand and supply, making sure that we have in place the kinds of measures that we've had, including everything from the speculation tax to building purpose-built rental housing. Making sure that we have a comprehensive approach to housing, I think, is just as important now as it's ever been. We're going to watch the housing market, obviously, since COVID. And with COVID, there have been mixed results. You've seen some increase in certainly in supply, some decrease in pricing, but still a great challenge. So we're continuing on with our measures and not lifting up for making sure that we look at affordable housing for people.
Do you have a follow-up, Tanya?
Yes, please, and this is for Minister Robinson. You've pushed municipalities to take up the rental-only zoning tools that the government introduced 2 years ago. It's been slow going, and Vancouver is only making significant steps now. So are you disappointed with that lack of pickup?
I'm excited, actually, about the pickup that we're seeing. It creates a real opportunity to get purpose-built rental, more purpose-built rental into the housing market. And I appreciate that, when you have a new tool, you want to make sure that you understand exactly what the implications are going to be, how it's going to be used, the best way to use it. And so local governments have been cautious, but we're starting to see more and more pickup as we go along. And of course, during COVID, things sort of changed in terms of having public hearings and acting on new things. But I'm really pleased to see the activity pick up, and it means that that local governments recognize that we still need to be addressing housing affordability, and the fact that they're saying yes, rental tenure, rental only zoning is a good thing, and bringing it online. And I think we're going to start to see it pick up more and more as time goes on.
Francis Beulah, Global Mail.
Hi. So last week, when the FSA presented their report, and when I talked to Tony afterwards, one of the issues that came up is that some condo owners don't always get their own insurance for their own unit. They rely on the corporation's insurance. I don't see anything about requiring that. Is that something that government can't do? It's up to strata corporations to insist on that, or what's happening with that piece?
Well, one of the things that we are doing is looking at how do you define a standard unit. It's really not clear. So one of the things that we're doing with this legislation is looking to identify what a standard unit is so that everyone understands what the Strata Corporation insurance covers and what it doesn't cover. And that's created, again, some of the risks. And so what we're doing is reducing those risks so that they understand what's exactly covered by the Strata Corporation insurance.
Do you have a follow-up, Francis?
I'm not going to bring in anything that says you have to have your own insurance or cap it. You know, that's something Alberta did actually recently, is they capped the personal, liability or the individual unit owners at $50,000. So you don't have anything in there about individual insurance or caps on individual liabilities. Is that perhaps coming later, or it's outside your jurisdiction?
At this point, this is our first step, and we're certainly taking in lots of ideas from others. Everyone recognizes this is a complex issue. I think Minister James has certainly been really clear, and I've been clear, and the industry's been clear that this is complex and there's many different component parts. But at the end of the day, what we need is more competition, and so reducing the risk is a key component of what we're starting today. And we're going to keep looking at what else we can do and what others can do in order to make sure that we can have a healthier market.
Next question is from Lori Colbert, Vancouver Sun.
Hi, thanks. I've got two questions. The first is to Minister James. If your government has the authority to ban these referral fees, why do you not also have the authority to cap the increase on insurance increases, which would be, I think, more tangible and a greater sense of relief to condo owners?
Well, in fact, the insurance industry is a private industry. The charging of insurance is done through the private market. And as we've talked about, one of the areas that we do have the ability to address is the risk profile, bringing down the risk profile. We also have the ability to address transparency, so people who are buying the insurance have a better idea of what's included in that insurance, what isn't included, what their neighbors are paying for their kinds of commissions. So we have the ability to address those pieces. So we're dealing with the pieces we have the authority to deal with. And as I said, waiting for the Financial Services Authority, their final report to come in the fall. They're continuing their work all summer, and there may be further steps that need to be taken. But this is the first step we have the ability to deal with right now, and that's what we're doing.
Do you have a follow-up, Lori?
As a follow-up on that, have you spoken to the Brokers Association, and do you have any kind of buy-in from them on passing along these savings to the condo owners?
I haven't spoken directly. We just tabled the legislation this morning. Certainly the brokers, insurance companies were involved in the discussions with the BC Financial Services Authority. They've been consulting everyone, including strata owners and strata corporations. Tony as well as part of the Condo Association. So all those people have been involved in the discussion that came to this point around the areas we can look at. But again, I think disclosure and transparency is a pretty clear piece in a whole number of professions, and I expect that it will help address some of the pressures we're facing in this one as well.
And we have time for one more question. Victor Kaiser, Radio NL.
Hi, ministers. I just wanted to slightly change the topic briefly. I know we see that we're going to get the rent subsidies being increased. Do you know when those guidelines might be coming out as to what people will be required to repay rent to landlords that owed, when that's going to come out, and also if that is a new component of the legislation or rather the proposal, or if that's something that's been always intended, because we've had some people tell us that they were under the impression that any rent they were unable to pay would have been forgiven by their landlords.
Thanks for the question, and you're referring to the fact that we extended the rent supplement program through to the end of August. We just announced that last week, and we've maintained the ban on evictions for non-payment of rent. And like I said last week, we are looking at when we do lift this ban on evictions for non-payment of rent, what kind of structures would be in place to require a framework in place so that landlords can get the rent that is owed to them. We've always been really clear that if you can pay rent, and I'm very proud of the fact that British Columbians really have pulled together. We've heard from the UDI that well over 80% of renters have paid rent. Another 12%, I recall, have paid partial rent, and people are really doing the best that they can. That work is happening right now as we speak in terms of what would it look like, and we'll be sure to let everyone know as soon as we have that sorted out.
Do you have a follow-up, Victor?
I guess on that as well, when this rent subsidy is extended through the end of August, the 2 months, is it going to be the exact same parameters as well, so 300 or 500 depending on your situation? I know there's been some calls, I guess, from Landlord BC and the opposition to maybe enhance the program. I don't know if that's going to happen. And if you could perhaps comment on that, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's the same program. It's the same program that's existed for 3 months. We've just extended the exact same parameters for an additional 2 months. We're still. I think it's important to recognize we're still one of the only provinces to have a rent supplement, and that's really made a difference for renters and for landlords because the supplement goes directly to the landlords, and that's really made a difference for landlords as well.
That's all the time we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to thank Meet Fox at meetfox.com for providing this communication platform for all of our interviews. If you are a coach or consultant and you need a comprehensive communication tool, please go to meetfox.com. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.